No, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much to the PDST team, and particularly to Rachel, who she'll remember our initial discussions, fado about getting involved in YEOTY as the Oireachtas Library and Research Service. But it's a great pleasure to speak to teachers as well, and particularly to share my experience as a senior parliamentary researcher and the head of data visualization in the Oireachtas Library and Research Service and the Parliamentary Research Service more specifically. I think this presentation flows on very well from Bruno's and Shane's and from particularly Kevin's, because this kind of deals with the communication dissemination aspect. So something Kevin mentioned I just thought was really interesting, the method matters, the type of research matters, creativity matters, the skills and imagination, the ability to incorporate that into your research in terms of delivery of it, in terms of your audience, is so important. And the idea that a project needs to tell a story, there's a narrative to everything. There's a narrative behind everything, but that narrative is so important, and I'll explain why. Generally speaking, articulating your research in a creative way, I mean, I always say it means you can engage the researcher better with their research, but you also engage your audience, and that's particularly important in my role. This presentation, by the way, will be a resource that'll be uploaded to the website, so it's a bit longer than 15 minutes, but it'll be there, so it's more detailed information you can peruse at your leisure later. And there will be other resources mentioned during the presentation as well that will aid you, guidance manuals, templates, things like that, and they'll be uploaded to the website later as well in a few days. So just to give you kind of a background as well of the Parliament, we're a quiet unit, deliberately, but quiet in the ground sense of the word in terms of the research environment. So, but with 23 of us, circa 23, roughly speaking, 23, 24 staff divided in research teams under those subject disciplines as they're listed there. Our outputs in terms of what we do for members, primarily legislative digest, but we also do obviously commissioned research, on-demand research for members of the Oireachtas, briefing papers for Oireachtas committees, briefing papers for committees in terms of legislative scrutiny, pre-legislative scrutiny, private members' bill scrutiny. You'll see a lot in the news, as well as proactive topical research pieces called spotlights and notes. But a key new element, or at least new for the last 6 years, has been our data visualization outputs. So that's our infographics, our data animations, our constituency dashboards in particular. So there's a neat infographic explaining our services that I'm not sure if it's available externally, but I'll check, because it should be. But more importantly, there's 2 links there that are quite valuable for yourselves in particular. So our website, which is our website on the public website, oireachtas.ie, and our data visualization analysis page, a dedicated portal. That's a relatively new creation. But why does this matter? Why does our experience matter? And why would it be useful and insightful to yourselves as teachers, teaching economics students? Well, while we're subject specialists, we're not data visualization specialists by any stretch of the imagination. However, with the support that's been provided to staff over the past 6 years, they've developed a proficiency very quickly and easily. Our audience is non-specialist, of course, obviously. Oireachtas members committees, there's various different levels of interest. There's so many different topics. They're time poor by nature. And there's a huge amount of information that they have to consume at any one particular point in time, and various different sources of information, as Shane was mentioning earlier. It's a very important thing to note. But the purpose of data visualization, generally speaking, in terms of, as I say, presenting information in a clear, efficient, easily understandable way, it perfectly dovetails with our audience requirement for information to be well scoped, timely, and written in plain English. Simple, accessible, 2-pagers, pick up and run. And we've had a number of member surveys asking them, requesting, kind of probing this information, requesting them to think more about the kind of outputs that they really use and they find particularly informative, particularly considering all those other considerations that they have. And that led us over time in the last 10, 15 years to very much more front-load summaries, executive summaries, insights, recommendations, bring things to the fore. But you have to ask yourself, if you're producing a 50-page paper and yet you're front-loading executive summaries and things like that, you're kind of admitting that there's a problem in terms of the amount of information that's being provided. Because if you have to do that, and you have to do that in quite a consistent way, it suggests that possibly and realistically, it's perhaps all a member will read, understandably. It kind of identifies a kind of a problem that needs to be addressed. Researchers, despite as gifted as they are in their subject specialism as well, they can be quite poor with the elevator pitch idea, the idea that you can give a 3-minute summary. You only get the members' attention very, sporadically, and when you have it, you have to be quite clever about how you use it. And it's an integral element, an integral skill for people to learn, particularly students. But we know that our methods, being innovative and being particularly responsive and listening to their needs and responding, it has been embraced by staff. It has led to better engagement, has really improved our responsiveness. So in general terms, for a simple fact that visual research is more easily disseminated. Members love infographics, they can better recall the data. And this is a key point as well. It's a must-have skill in the social science economics field to highlight research. It certainly has entered things like information booklets and jobs more recently as a desirable skill to have when you're coming into the economics and social science fields. And it really is for many reasons. Just to mention our visual and our output suite is kind of structured under these 3 pillars. So you have statics, we have infographics, these are the infographics, just the standard flat infographics. You have interactives more recently, these are data animations. So, as I said, a fairly new venture, but allows members and their staff to manipulate information and engage better with information and embrace their digital resources that they have accessible to them. Broken tablets and things like that, and younger members who are more readily keen to kind of access information this way. And our constituency dashboard, the GIS mapping tool, which is more prominent. Key point though about all these things is they're all free, except the one thing is that the software we use to do the static graphics, in terms of we only simply use Microsoft Publisher or Microsoft PowerPoint. We use icons as well. So we use a standardized icon database, which is an Noun project. It's available at a low price. I promise you, it's the only expense we have when it comes to infographics in a year. It's $39.99. It's quite embarrassing in a sense that that's dollars. It's quite embarrassing because it was a back to school kind of cost for this, back to school, and the entire Oireachtas is using the one license. But it's a small cost. The rest, Flourish, for example, for our data animations more recently, is free. And free means public as well. And Tableau as well is free. Now the dashboards were designed externally, but it's important to note that they're free. So there's not there isn't an issue in terms of these kind of the pickup costs, kind of sunk costs when you're starting these things.